The Abyss of Mars. By J.W. Steele. The Martian sands shifted underfoot as Captain Morris and Major Harp stood transfixed. Before them, a swirling portal churned with an unearthly light, casting flickering shadows across the desolate, crimson expanse. Above, the alien sky stretched in deep, brooding shades of scarlet, its haunting glow washing over the landscape. The sand shimmered in rust-colored tones on the barren expanse. Far away in the cosmic void, planet Earth appeared as little more than a tiny blue dot on the canvas of the infinite starlit abyss, a stark reminder of how far they had traveled. Morris adjusted his helmet and glanced at Harp, who was already stepping toward the portal. "Are you ready for this?" Morris asked, his voice steady despite the anticipation thrumming through him. Harp nodded, his eyes gleaming with a determination Morris couldn't quite place. "Let's see what lies beyond," he replied. With a deep breath, the astronaut stepped through the mouth of the cavern, leaving the familiar Martian terrain behind. The world inside defied all expectations. A vast desert boulder-strewn chaparral unfolded before them, its blood-red sugar sand glimmering under the iridescent fluorite ceiling that bathed the cavern in an otherworldly light. Morris checked his wrist-mounted display and noted the temperature, a bone-chilling -195 degrees. The air was eerily dry and utterly still, as if time itself held its breath in this alien netherworld. "This reminds me of Rogers Pass in Montana," Morris said. "I grew up there. You could piss, and it would freeze before it hit the ground." "Don't piss," Harp replied. They continued their journey across the desert, following the coordinates General Chucky had provided to Harp. Unbeknownst to Morris, Chucky had discovered a vast treasure of jadeite in a cavern at the bottom of a shaft deep inside the cave. This discovery had occurred 20 years ago, when Chucky was a captain. He had never reported it, choosing instead to keep the secret until the right moment to retrieve the treasure. After walking for miles, they reached the area Chucky had described. A narrow shaft led deep into the ground, its dark pit promising secrets and danger. "This is it," Harp said, his voice tinged with excitement. Morris peered into the darkness. "What exactly are we looking for?" Harp hesitated before deciding to reveal part of the truth. "Chucky found something valuable down there. We need to retrieve it." Morris frowned. "What do you mean by valuable?" "Valuable how?" "It's called jadeite, Captain. Imperial jade, worth billions," Harp confessed, his eyes glinting with greed. "But there's only one way to get it." Morris eyed him coolly. "What's that supposed to mean, Major?" Harp's expression hardened. "Chucky and I have a plan. You're not part of it." Before Morris could react, Harp lunged forward and shoved him toward the shaft. Morris stumbled, grabbing at the edge to stop his fall. But Harp was relentless, his strength fueled by desperation. With one final push, Morris fell into the crevasse. He clawed at the walls, the cavern a blur of motion and pain as he tumbled down the hole. He landed hard on his back, his primary life support system cushioning the shock of the rocky ground below. For a moment, Captain Morris blacked out. When he came to, he was wheezing and short of breath. Groaning, he struggled to his feet and looked around. The tunnel was dimly lit by the green haze of giant fluorite stalactites that hung from the ceiling. He checked the gauges in his helmet and assessed the damage. All systems were intact and functioning. He breathed a sigh of relief. "Think, Morris," he muttered to himself. "You've got to find a way out of here." He started walking, following the tunnel's twists and turns. As he went deeper, he noticed the walls were studded with green crystals of jadeite. Chucky had been right about the treasure. But there was more, much more. The captain walked until he reached a massive stone door at the end of the tunnel. Intricate carvings covered its surface, depicting scenes of an ancient civilization. He touched the door, and it opened with a sigh, revealing a massive rock-hewn cathedral in the distance. Inside the chamber, golden chests teeming with jadeite crystals glittered on an altar in the dim light. It was a fortune beyond imagination. But something else caught Morris's attention, a figure standing in the center of the room. It was a tall, formidable android, its body robust with mechanical components that defied the engineering he was familiar with. Despite its futuristic design, it was magnificent to behold. Its eyes were like sparkling sapphires, and its shell shimmered like quicksilver. Morris felt a chill run down his spine. Of course, nothing of this value would be left unattended. It has to be the guardian of the treasure, he thought. He knew he couldn't face this entity alone. Meanwhile, Harp had descended into the shaft using a fixed line that Chucky had buried in the sand during his last expedition. His eyes gleamed with visions of wealth and power as he made his way deeper into the subterranean excavation. He paused, frowning as he surveyed the floor of the shaft. There was no sign of the captain's body anywhere. He peered over the ledge of the precipice into the stark black abyss. Harp shook his head. He must have tumbled further into the depths, he muttered. What a horrible way to go. Oh well, life belongs to the living. The general's got my back. As long as everything goes as planned, I'm bulletproof. Besides, nobody knows what happened to Morris but me. He paused for a moment and laughed. This is too sweet to be true. The weak link in the chain is somewhere in the pit of hell. Now me and Chucky own it all. Whistling a tune, he headed down the shaft. A dim light flickered at the mouth of the chamber. Harp stepped inside, only to halt abruptly. Before him stood the powerful android, its gleaming metallic frame radiating an aura of unyielding authority. What the hell is that? He whispered. From behind a massive pillar, Morris stepped into view. It's an android, Harp. And it's not going to let you take the treasure. Looks like Chucky hid a few pieces of the puzzle. The Major's eyes widened. I thought I sent you back to hell, Captain. He sneered. We'll see about that, Morris. He pulled out his phaser and aimed it at the droid. The robot reacted instantaneously. With a fluid motion, it raised its hand, sending a wave of energy that knocked Harp off his feet. The phaser clattered to the ground, and spun out of reach. Harp lay sprawled on the floor, groaning, the android's burning eyes focused on him. The cyborg moved closer, its imposing figure unyielding. Morris stepped further into the chamber, his mind racing. He marveled at the Guardian's power, knowing any confrontation would be futile. Major Harp, this isn't the way. Morris called out, his voice steady. We need to think this through. Harp struggled to his feet, his face contorted with rage. Think? We don't have time to think, Morris. That treasure is my ticket to a new life. Don't you want to be part of it? We could bring this treasure back to Earth. I have the connections to keep it all under wraps. Don't be a fool, Morris, you can be wealthy beyond your wildest dreams. Morris shook his head. It's not worth dying for, Major. Chucky sent us here knowing the risks. Do you think this entity is just going to let us walk away with its charge? Are you so stupid you can't see what's going to happen? The android remained motionless, its silence unnerving. Morris took a deep breath and stepped forward, raising his hands in a gesture of peace. He addressed the robot, Guardian, we are not here to steal or desecrate this ancient temple. We're explorers, seeking knowledge and understanding. The droid's eyes flickered. Morris thought he saw a hint of recognition. It raised its hand, and a holographic projection filled the chamber. Scenes of an ancient Martian civilization played out before them, an advanced society thriving in harmony with its environment, their achievements unmatched, and their knowledge inconceivable. Morris watched in awe as the history of this primeval race unfolded. They were incredible, he murmured. Harp recovered his phaser and pointed the weapon at the cyborg. Step aside, Tin Man, or I'll vaporize your mechanical mind. The Guardian lowered its hand, and the projection faded. It took a step closer to Morris and opened its palm to reveal a raw fragment of jadeite. Morris hesitated, then reached out and took the stone. A voice resonated in his mind, clear and profound. "This is a gift of knowledge and peace, Earthman. Use it wisely. You are forewarned, if anyone from your world invades this sacred temple, ever, I am programmed to destroy them. I have the knowledge and the authority to vaporize this planet. It is a failsafe embedded in my programming by my benefactors, the Vulcans." Morris nodded solemnly. "I will deliver your warning to Earth." "Thank you," he said. "You may leave now, Captain. I will not obstruct your departure. You have been advised." The cyborg folded its arms into its metallic trunk, signaling the end of their interaction. Harp, however, was not ready to leave. With a sudden lunge, he dashed toward the treasure. "No! We can't leave it all behind." The Guardian's eyes flared. In an instant, it raised an invisible barrier between Harp and the jadeite fortune. The Major pounded on the wall, his frustration mounting as he slid to his knees. Morris approached him, the glowing crystal clutched tightly in his hand. "Major Harp, we have what we need. Let's go." "You fool," Harp hissed, resting his helmet against the barrier. The fire in his eyes dimmed. Morris shook his head. "There's no snare like greed, Major. You were willing to die for this, weren't you?" "Die for it? Hell no. I want to live like a king for the rest of my life, you idiot. Why are you so obtuse?" Morris stepped closer, his expression firm. "The game's over, Major. Let's go." Together, they retraced their steps through the tunnel. They emerged in the frigid red desert. Morris glanced at the small blue dot called Earth shimmering in the infinite cosmos. He knew their discovery would change everything. Back on the ship, the captain secured the jadeite crystal in a specimen container. Harp approached him. "Look, Captain Morris, I don't know what got into me. I just wanted to." Morris brought a haymaker up from way down south. It connected squarely with the Harp's jaw, and he collapsed to the floor, his eyes glassy. Morris lifted him and set him in the helm chair. He strapped the Major's wrists securely to the armrests with utility straps, tightening the bonds with precision to ensure Harp couldn't move. As Harp regained his senses, he winced and muttered, "Damn it, Morris, what the hell?" Captain Morris stood over him, his face contorted with anger. "I should kill you, you demented son of a bitch. I've known you for 20 years, and you threw me away like a piece of garbage. Why?" A streak of blood ran down Harp's face as he coughed. His voice was cold and devoid of remorse. "You mean nothing to me, Captain. No one does. I live because I must. And if I must, I do what I do because I can. There's no afterlife, no glory. Everything we achieve dies with us." Morris stared at him and shook his head. "That's your excuse? Some of us find meaning in the here and now. My meaning is to see that you, and General Chucky, face a court-martial and spend the rest of your lives in prison." Harp smirked weakly. "Good luck with that." Morris leaned in, his tone icy. "Oh, I don't need luck, numbnuts. I have the truth." He stepped back, and secured the jadeite crystal in the ship's lockbox. As he prepared for their ascent, he glanced at Harp one last time. "Hey, Major. You can piss any time you want now." As the ship ascended, leaving Mars behind, Morris felt a profound sense of renewal. He gazed out at the crimson planet shrinking below, a newfound purpose settling within him. He knew he would go down in history not for the wealth he found but for safeguarding a sacred trust and ensuring the survival of the Red Planet's legacy.